I just want to buy stuff and her not know I bought it. And that's so hard. I think if I knew the name of my bank, I could do it. But I gotta go through her to get that information. I poke around. I'm like, if I had a bank, what bank do you think I would go to? I also once a week walk into a bank and go, hello, is my money in this bank?
Good morning. It's Friday, Fight Song Friday, April the 17th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company and the Cold War. All that and more when I get back. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you, Stuart Varney.
Oh, we certainly will. Good morning, Cheryl. Good morning, everyone. Oh, look, just sit back and watch your money grow. Wall Street's on a tear. This is a classic V-shaped recovery. We're just receiving this. Iran's foreign minister says all commercial vessels may pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Simple as that. And look what's happening on the market. The Dow up about 500 points, S&P is up about 50, and the Nasdaq's up now about 240 points. Significant gains this morning after that announcement from Iran's foreign minister. The price of oil, where's that? Presumably it's down. Yes, indeed, it's down. You're looking at $86 a barrel. down $8, 9% lower. The war news is clearly helping the market. The president says he may go to Pakistan himself to conclude peace talks with Iran. The ceasefire is holding. The blockade of Iranian ports, that's working to drain the Iranian economy. The ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, that's holding. There is a very positive tone to the talks, and investors clearly like it. Also on the show today, a big win for the far left. Democrat Analilia Meha won a special election in New Jersey. She will be the most far left member of Congress. A $25 minimum wage, tax the rich, expand the Supreme Court, abolish ICE, and she accuses Israel of genocide. And by the way, she won by nearly 20 points. We're going to take a close look at another far-left Democrat, Tom Steyer, who now leads Democrat candidates in the race for California governor. He is running the most expensive campaign in America. He's already spent $120 million. So what? He spent $340 million on his failed presidential bid in 2020. And here's a stock you got to watch today, Netflix. The co-founder, Reed Hastings, is leaving the company to pursue other interests. We'll try to figure out why the stock of the world's top streamer is down nearly 10%. It is Friday, April the 17th, 2026.
And that was Stuart Varney, Nonprofit News Now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Recognizing that the bad Democrats' choices and feelings are not the conservatives' burden to carry. It means cultivating self-compassion and self-care, shifting the focus inward rather than outward. The journey toward freedom is not linear or easy. It involves setbacks, moments of doubt and ongoing self-reflection. The bad Democrats' influence may persist through intermittent contact or shared environments. The conservative must remain vigilant, continuously affirming the truth against the pull of illusions. Support from colleagues can be crucial in sustaining this process. Ultimately, freedom is the emergence of integrity. It is the reclaiming of voice, power, and identity. It is the ability to live without fear of manipulation, without sacrificing self for the sake of another's ego. It is the realization that respect must be mutual, not one-sided. For the conservative who walks away from the bad Democrat, freedom is the reward of courage, the prize earned by dismantling illusions and standing firm in reality. You know, people often mistake kindness for virtue, and that's a problem, because kindness unmoored from truth and responsibility quickly becomes cowardice, especially when it's directed at someone who exploits it like a bad Democrat. Kindness is a virtue, no doubt, but like any virtue, when it's misapplied or misunderstood, it can become destructive. We're told from a young age to be nice, to be kind, to give others the benefit of the doubt. And that's fine as far as it goes. But if you don't understand the context, if you don't grasp who it is you're being kind to and why, then you risk enabling the exact sort of behavior that kindness is meant to prevent. This is particularly true when dealing with bad Democrats, who are often skilled at extracting kindness from others for their own benefit. When you extend kindness to someone who manipulates lies or distorts reality to maintain their fragile ego, you're not being virtuous, you're being used. A bad Democrat doesn't see your kindness as a gesture of goodwill, they see it as a weakness, as an entry point, as leverage. They learn quickly that if they play the right emotional chords, they'll make themselves the victim, or pretend to be misunderstood, or sprinkle in a little charm. You'll yield. You'll let things go. You'll suppress your discomfort. You'll rationalize the red flags. Why? Because you don't want to be unkind, because you don't want to seem judgmental. But here's the hard truth. That instinct, noble as it seems on the surface, can make you a collaborator in your own undoing. When you continue to show kindness to someone who repeatedly oversteps your boundaries, who twists your words, who gaslights you into questioning your own sanity, you're not being compassionate. You're being complicit. You're participating in the illusion they create. Bad Democrats thrive in that illusion. They survive by maintaining a narrative where they're always the misunderstood genius, the unjustly criticized hero, the perpetual victim. And they need enablers. People who won't call them out, who won't confront them, who will keep smoothing things over. Kindness becomes the oil that keeps their machine of manipulation running. This is not about advocating cruelty. It's not about becoming hardened or cynical. It's about recognizing the truth. Kindness requires strength. It requires discernment. It means knowing when to say no, when to walk away, when to stop giving someone the benefit of the doubt because they've used up all their credit. Being truly kind doesn't mean avoiding conflict at all costs. It means being willing to risk conflict in the service of truth. It means standing up, not just for others, but for yourself. And that's not easy. It's far easier to keep the peace, to avoid the confrontation, to tell yourself that maybe they're just having a bad day, that maybe you misunderstood, that maybe you're overreacting. But those mental gymnastics come at a cost. They erode your self-respect. They blur your moral clarity. And over time, they convince you that your discomfort, your instincts, your boundaries are less important than someone else's approval. That's not kindness. That's self-abandonment. And the bad Democrat counts on it. They know you hesitate to push back. They know you'll second-guess yourself. They know how to exploit your fear of being mean or unfair, and they will continue to push the line, to test your limits, to see how much they can take before you finally say enough. But if you never say it, if you never draw that line, then your kindness becomes their cover. It becomes the shield they hide behind. It becomes the justification they use to keep doing what they're doing. If it were really that bad, they think, they'd stop me. But you don't stop them because you're kind, because you care, because you're trying to be the better person. And while you're doing that, while you're twisting yourself into knots to maintain the image of decency, they're taking full advantage to shape the narrative. They're painting themselves as the injured party. And you become the enabler, the one who let it happen. Back in a minute. Thank you. So the news is that a far left candidate in New Jersey won a special election for a seat in the House of Representatives. And so then there's going to be a lot of soul searching on the part of various pundits today, tomorrow, next few days. And they're going to be wondering, how did this happen? Like they did with Mamdani. Comrade Zoran, how did he get elected? Well, look in the mirror. Sean Hannity, every single pundit in this country, every single conservative pundit should look in the mirror and point the finger at that image and say, your fault. Your fault. These folks have millions and millions of viewers and listeners. They have tremendous influence. The reason that the wrong people get elected is simply because these people fail to use their influence correctly. They preach to the choir. If they bothered to speak to Democrats, the people like the lady in New Jersey wouldn't be getting elected. Back in a minute. Thank you. So I got there's an X account called Tony, and I deal with them. I play clips from Mr. Tony, but he has a non-clip, I guess, a non-verbal or non-audio, that's it, entry here. And it reads as follows. Tiffany Murillo, a U.S. Navy sonar technician, was involuntarily separated in March 2022 for refusing the COVID-19 vaccine. She was recently reinstated with nearly 4 years of service credit, back pay, and also allowing her to return to her preferred duty station. Love this. Well, that statement makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense the way it's written. This is what he should have said. Tiffany Murillo, a conservative U.S. Navy sonar technician, was involuntarily separated in March 2022 for disobeying liberals. She was recently reinstated with 4 years of service credit, back pay, and also allowing her to return to her preferred duty station. Love this. That's the way it should have been written. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, the Cold War.
February 27th, 1991, 12:30 hours. The location is in the Iraqi desert, west of Basra. The world is grey. Not the grey of an overcast day, but a suffocating, violent grey that tastes of oil and grit. A shamal, a massive sandstorm combined with freezing rain, is hammering the desert floor. The wind is howling at 30 knots. Visibility is less than 500 meters. In these conditions, war is supposed to be impossible. Inside the cramped turret of a Soviet-built T-72 tank, an Iraqi major wipes a mixture of sweat and condensation from his eyes. He is commanding a battalion of the Medina Luminous Division. These are not the terrified conscripts the world saw surrendering on CNN last week. These are the Republican Guard, the elite, the iron fist of Saddam Hussein. They have spent 8 years fighting in the marshes of Iran. They are dug in, motivated, and waiting. The major presses his face against the rubber eye cup of his optical sight. He traverses the turret slowly to the west. He is looking for the Americans. He sees nothing, just the driving rain and the endless flat scrub of the desert. He keys his radio handset. Unit 2, report visibility. Static crackles back. 0, sir. I cannot see past the berm. The sensors are useless. The major relaxes, leaning back against the cold steel of the turret ring. He lights a cigarette. He knows the doctrine. He knows that NATO tanks, like his own, rely on optical rangefinders. If he cannot see them, they cannot see him. He believes the Americans are halted miles away, huddled in their vehicles, waiting for the storm to pass. He believes he is safe. He is dead wrong. 3,000 meters away, nearly 2 miles through the blinding storm, a predator is watching him. Inside the lead American M1A1 Abrams tank, call sign Apache, the environment is different. It is quiet. The low, high-pitched whine of the gas turbine engine is a steady hum, barely audible over the wind outside. The American gunner isn't looking through glass. He is staring into a glowing green monitor, the Thermal Imaging System, or TIS. To the naked eye, the Iraqi tank is invisible, hidden behind a wall of sand and rain. But to the TIS, the world is a landscape of heat. The cold rain has cooled the desert sand, making the background dark. But the Iraqi tank? Its diesel engine is hot. Its heater is running. The crew inside is warm. On the green screen, the T-72 glows white-hot like a burning star against a night sky. The American gunner adjusts his control handles. The crosshairs drift smoothly onto the center of the glowing white blob. The laser rangefinder flashes. Range, 3,000 meters, the computer whispers. The gunner's thumb hovers over the red triggers. The Iraqi major takes a drag of his cigarette. He checks his watch. He thinks about lunch. The American commander speaks one word: fire. A sabot round leaves the barrel of the Abrams at 3,500 miles per hour. It crosses the 2-mile gap in less than 2 seconds. The Iraqi major never hears the shot. He never sees the flash. The round impacts the T-72. It doesn't explode. It liquefies the armor. The laws of physics break down as the depleted uranium dart punches through the turret like a needle through wet paper. The ammunition carousel inside detonates. A massive fireball erupts in the grey mist. The 12-ton turret is thrown 50 feet into the air. On the radio network, panic explodes. Contact. Contact front. Where? I see nothing. Who is firing? Where are they? The Iraqi tankers are spinning their turrets frantically, searching for a muzzle flash, a shape, anything. But the desert is empty. They are being killed by ghosts. This is the Battle of Medina Ridge, the largest tank battle since World War II. But it wasn't a battle, it was an execution. And today, we are going to show you exactly how 40 minutes of technology erased 40 years of Soviet military doctrine. If you want to understand the machinery of dominance, subscribe to Cold War Impact now. Let's open the hatch. To understand why this massacre happened, we have to go back. We have to understand the fear. For 4 decades, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization NATO lived in the shadow of the Soviet tank. Intelligence reports from the 1970s painted a terrifying picture. The Soviet T-72 was faster, lower, and had a bigger gun than anything the West had. The Pentagon ran war games where thousands of American tanks were wiped out by the sheer number of Soviet armor pouring through the Fulda Gap in Germany. When the Gulf War began in 1991, the American public was nervous. The media was filled with dire predictions. They said the desert sand would destroy the complex American engines. They said the battle-hardened Republican Guard would trap the Americans in a bloody meat grinder. They warned that thousands of body bags would come home. And then there was the Vietnam syndrome. The United States had not won a major war in a generation. The commanders leading this attack, men like General Norman Schwarzkopf, had served in Vietnam as young officers. They had seen what happens when you underestimate an enemy. They were determined not to make the same mistake. The plan was audacious. It was called the left hook. While the Marines distracted the Iraqis at the Kuwaiti border, the heavy armored divisions, the 7th Corps, drove hundreds of miles west, deep into the empty desert. They swung north, then east, aiming to hit the Republican Guard from behind. Leading this charge was the 1st Armored Division, Old Ironsides. 348 M1A1 Abrams tanks, the most powerful armored formation ever assembled in human history. But as they approached Medina Ridge on that rainy afternoon, the American crews were on edge. They were tired. They had been moving for days, and they were terrified of one thing above all else: chemical weapons. Intelligence reports suggested that Saddam Hussein had authorized the use of sarin nerve gas. Every American soldier inside those tanks was sweating in a thick, charcoal-lined MOPP suit. Rubber gloves, rubber boots. If the alarm sounded, they had seconds to mask up or die. The tension inside the hulls was suffocating. On the other side of the ridge, the Iraqi strategy was sound. The Medina Division had deployed in a classic reverse slope defense. They placed their tanks behind the crest of the hill. The idea was simple geometry. The American tanks would have to drive up the hill. As they reached the top, their guns would be pointing at the sky for a few critical seconds. Their thin bottom armor would be exposed. That is when the Iraqis, hidden in prepared positions, would open fire at point-blank range. It was a trap that had destroyed British tanks in North Africa in 1942. It was a trap that destroyed Israeli tanks in 1973. The Iraqis sat in their holes, confident. They had the ground, they had the numbers, they had the weather. But they forgot one thing. They were fighting a war of angles. The Americans were fighting a war of electrons. Let's pause the battle for a moment to look at the machine that changed everything. The M1A1 Abrams. The Iraqi T-72 was a tank designed for World War III, but built with the mindset of World War II. It was small, cheap to produce, and relied on being part of a massive swarm. Its gun sights were optical glass and mirrors. To shoot, you had to stop the tank to let the suspension settle. The Abrams was a spaceship by comparison. It had 3 distinct advantages that the Iraqis couldn't comprehend. Number 1, the eyes. We mentioned the thermal imaging system, but you have to understand how good it was. An Iraqi tank commander looking through his periscope in the rain could see maybe 800 meters. The Abrams thermal sight could classify a target at 3,000 meters. That is a 2.2 kilometer advantage. The Americans could shoot the Iraqis for a full 2 minutes before the Iraqis could even see them. Number 2, the brain. The Abrams had a digital ballistic computer. It measured wind speed, humidity, air temperature, and even the bend of the gun barrel caused by solar heating. It used a laser to get the exact range. But the real magic was the stabilization. The gun of the Abrams was gyroscopically stabilized on 2 axes. The tank could be driving 40 miles per hour over rough rocks, bouncing violently, but the gun barrel would stay locked on the target like a sniper's rifle. The Iraqis had to stop to shoot. The Americans could kill while moving at full speed. Number 3, the silver bullet. The ammunition. The Iraqis were firing steel darts. The Americans were firing the M829A1, a dart made of depleted uranium. Uranium is 2.5 times denser than steel. When this dart hits enemy armor, it doesn't mushroom or flatten, it self-sharpens. As it pushes through the armor, the edges shear off, keeping the point razor sharp. It generates so much friction heat that it is pyrophoric. It catches fire on contact with air. So, when it punches into the tank, it sprays the crew with molten, burning uranium dust. It was a weapon of absolute terror. Armed with these tools, the 1st Armored Division crossed the phase line smash and rolled toward the ridge. Time, 12:45 hours. The battle begins. The 1st Armored Division crests a small rise. The Medina Division is ahead. Contact front. Tanks. Many tanks. The American formation is massive. A wedge formation 5 miles wide. On the Iraqi side, the confusion is absolute. An Iraqi captain in a T-55 screams into his radio, "We are being hit. Who is firing?" He looks left. The tank next to him erupts. The turret flies off. He looks right. An armored personnel carrier explodes, turning into a bonfire. He orders his driver to charge. "Move! Move forward! Close the distance!" The Iraqi tanks roar out of their defensive holes. They charge blindly into the rain, hoping to find the enemy. This is exactly what the Americans want. As the Iraqi tanks move, their engines work harder. They get hotter. On the American thermal sights, the targets get brighter and brighter. Inside the Abrams tanks, the rhythm is robotic. "Gunner, Sabot, tank," the commander says. "Identified. Fire. On the way. Boom. Target cease. Next target." It is relentless. The Americans are destroying an Iraqi vehicle every 4 to 5 seconds. One American platoon leader, Captain H.R. McMaster, who would later become a famous general, leads his troop, Eagle Troop, deep into the enemy line. They are outnumbered, but the fire rate is so high, the Iraqis think they are facing an entire regiment. The Iraqis try to fight back. They fire hundreds of rounds. Red tracers streak through the grey rain. Most of the shots fly high or hit the dirt. They are guessing the range. But one lucky shot finds a mark. An Iraqi shell hits the turret of an Abrams tank dead on. The crew inside flinches. They wait for the explosion. They wait for death. Nothing happens. The commander checks the diagnostics. "We're okay! We're okay!" The Iraqi shell shattered against the Chobham armor. It left a scratch. The American gunner turns the turret toward the Iraqi tank that fired. Return fire. One shot. The Iraqi tank is vaporized. The psychological impact of this is devastating. Imagine fighting an enemy you cannot see, who moves faster than you, and who cannot be killed by your weapons. The Iraqi morale breaks. Crews begin to bail out of perfectly good tanks. They run into the desert, hands up, desperate to surrender to the metal monsters emerging from the storm. By 1300 hours, just 40 minutes after the first shot, the guns fall silent. The storm begins to clear. The sun pushes through the clouds. The 1st Armored Division rolls forward to assess the damage. The scene is apocalyptic. Medina Ridge is a graveyard. Burning hulks of T-72 tanks line the horizon. The smell of burning diesel, melting rubber, and cooked ammunition hangs heavy in the air. In just 40 minutes, the U.S. Army has destroyed 186 enemy tanks, 127 armored vehicles, dozens of artillery pieces. And the cost? The 1st Armored Division lost 0 tanks to enemy fire. One American soldier, Specialist Ardon Cooper, was tragically killed, but even that was due to friendly fire in the confusion, not by the enemy. The Battle of Medina Ridge was the final nail in the coffin of the Soviet military reputation. It proved that in the modern age, mass is irrelevant. It doesn't matter if you have 10,000 tanks if you can't see the battlefield. The Iraqi commander we met at the start, his tank was found with the turret blown off. He had died without ever knowing where the enemy was. This battle taught the world a lesson that stands to this day. Superior technology, combined with superior training, creates an unfair fight. And in war, you want an unfair fight. The Cold War was feared for 40 years. It ended in 40 minutes.
And that was the Cold War. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.